So first and foremost, if I can have the two of you introduce yourselves, who you are, what you're all about, and then we can just go right into it.
Sure. Hello, my name is Winny Clarke. I am one half of the Discipline Stoners podcast, which, Mo, you were on a couple days ago, and it was a really transformative experience. And I'm also an actor and comedian and yoga and meditation guide.
Nice.
I am Ellevan. I'm the other half of the Discipline Stoners podcast. And I am a hip-hop artist and a producer and growing into a philosopher, if you will. And it's an honor to rub shoulders with Mo and Nathan here and just expand on that. So yeah.
Nice. Now, just before we get into everything, we're just talking about names and how names suit people, either their image or their personality. So you guys, you're just telling a quick story about a person that you know, but you keep messing up her name because I guess in your mind she probably looks like someone else or reminds you of someone else.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting too, because I have a theory on that. I feel that everything around us, our culture, everything that's happening in our culture, within our environment, the superego, influences our personality traits. So if everyone knows me as Morgan or knows me as Mo, right? But the thing is, I was just telling Nathan before we started recording that if my middle name is Oliver, so my name is actually Morgan Oliver Smith. So people call me, I call myself Morgan O. Smith, right? But I was telling Nathan not too long ago that if he met me as an Oliver, maybe he would just accept me as an Oliver. And the argument could be like, well, no, maybe I would call you Oliver, but deep down inside, I would see you as something else. And that's a possibility too. But I have a strong belief that we shape our personalities based on the names that we're given.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the sounding of the name.
Absolutely.
Like my name, Morgan. Like if my name was like Tyrone, I'd be trying to talk like a New Yorker right now. I'm just saying.
My full name's Tyrone. Tyrone, really?
Yeah, the movie just came out. What do they call it again?
Cloning
Tyrone. So the first thing in my mind, right? It's the first name in my mind, right? So, but like, if my name was Tyrone, though, I would have a different type of personality. Maybe not so different, but enough to fit around the name Tyrone because my ego is going to be attached to that name, and now the ego has to live up to the sounding of that name or anyone's associated to that name.
The expectation that you're given from other people when they learn that's your name. You're talking to someone that evolved his ego identity into a self-given name in his adulthood. It's like the kickback I even get from Ellevan, because that's just who I roll by, who I go by. That's my full identity. And I use the middle name example when people say, but what's your birth name? You tell it's usually white drunk women it shows. And I'm like, yo, I told you my name was Ellevan. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And that's like, they're just like, want to dig deeper. I'm like, all right, but if you call, so my birth name is Evan. And so if you call, but that just feels like a middle name. It's like, it is my name. But again, it would be like how it feels in your body when someone calls you Oliver. You're like, it is, but it isn't.
But it isn't.
It's like when you identify with one thing, it's like, even took me a long time to call myself a musician because I felt like I was a rapper. You know what I mean? Like, it's I had to, even those subtle adjustments, it's like, but being a rapper is being a musician, but you just have to perceive yourself holistically. I just hadn't done the self-worth work, 10,000 hours producing music, carrying guitars in and out of it. You know what I mean? Like, to own that. So it's like, the ego identity of what you set, what you hear when you, the sound you hear when you're being addressed.
When you're being addressed,
so much to do with your interaction and how someone gives you the subtle tones of energy underneath that. Like when someone calls me Ellevan, like fully it's my name, that's true because that's how I'm existing. It's like I get this sparkle of love from that person, of acceptance, and like to proceed as the best highest self because that's what I want to present.
That's what you want to present. That's interesting. I never knew your birth name is Evan.
Yeah.
And now when I hear Evan 11, it makes perfect sense to me now. Right?
It's in there. It's in there.
It's still in there. Wow. I never knew that. Just the other day, I was saying to myself, what's 11's real name? It hit me after knowing you for so many years. I was like, what's his real name? What's his birth name? Yeah. And I just never chose to ask because I'm like, it's probably for that reason. It's like, he probably doesn't want that to be out there like to the public. He probably doesn't care, but he wants to be dressed as 11. So
I so appreciate that. And that is one of the many reasons why I so cherish you in my life as an individual. As I mentioned when you were on our pod, you've always just been this warm, accepting energy. And that's so important for people, especially like myself, meeting you like as an artist, like to meet and just to honestly know are there. Like that you're just like, I don't know, like just like full of that warm belief. And that's like so important. So it actually did help me evolve into the further depths of Ellevan, even knowing you through Rise and all that.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, now before we started recording, you mentioned something about Uncle Mo. Referring to me as Uncle Mo?
Dude.
Was that, and what's all that about?
Okay, so I'll let Winnie take it over, but I'll give the context because I've been inviting this concept into my life this whole year because I feel like when momentum is on your side, rather when you're going through like when Uncle Mo's in the building, like when manifestations are say to yourself, okay, I eventually want to go to a Raptors game, but I just can't afford the tickets because it's like $9,000. Fine. And you say, I want to go, but you're not really putting too much hurt on that. You're not saying, oh, I can't go. You're saying it'd be nice to go. And then you get an invite to go to like a private box. And then the next week you get another invite to go to the private box. And that happened to me. And I said to myself, Uncle Mo's in the building because it's like, it's happening. Like momentum's on my side.
Momentum's on your side.
And then I've never called you Mo. I mean, I know you to be called as Mo, but I've always loved your name, Morgan. So I even go Morgan O. Smith. Like, I like your full name. Like, yo, catch this. Like, we're going to have Morgan O. Smith on, you know? But when Winnie was like, when Mo was on, and I'm like, Mo, I invited Uncle Mo into the building because you're
more momentum.
More momentum. And it's funny that it was like Uncle Mo because it was like your wise perspective the other day literally broke our reality.
Yeah.
Like, I'll let Winnie take it from here.
Oh,
but,
wow.
Like, you fucked us up, bro, in a really good way.
Oh boy, yeah. I just actually said that just like when I came home, I was just sitting down and I haven't been able to actually articulate still. I'm still absorbing like the change that has happened since we've seen you. And I feel like I have less opinions than I've ever had in my life.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, since seeing you, and it's just like I'm really trying to
oh gosh,
not allow my brain to bust and like stay here in third dimension. But I've been
remember what I said though, whatever happens, let it be okay.
Yeah, I know. And that's also in the back of my mind. So I'm just like, I guess I'm just chilling.
I guess I don't have to pump cortisol in myself or worry about what side of right and wrong I'm on. You've stopped the momentum of self-judgment by almost pulling the rug from up under us in the direction of self-judgment that we had going on. And
self-judgment.
Like just like your whole perspective, I felt like if anyone watching like knows Abraham Hicks, like you get an audience member and they bring you a life problem and they kind of share this oneness perspective with you where you don't even believe in your own problems anymore. You more see the truth of the oneness, that everything is divine. And as long as you give attention to what you like, you'll have a good time. But then Mo takes it one step further and goes, or not. Don't worry about it.
Like, or not, don't worry about it.
Or you go through some pain and you learn something. So like, why stress about it? And I think Win and I constantly trying to build our business, our podcast, expand the community, my music career, her acting career. We're constantly building, shaping, hoping, wishing, forcing, making, controlling, connecting, doing. And there's so much context of, but if I don't, I'll fail under that sometimes. Yeah. And even just with everything that you set goals for, you want to set goals and you want to move towards a ideal, don't you? I think a human life, just to make it better, even if it's just healing parts of yourself, could be an ideal. It doesn't have to mean you build a castle, but like,
and all of that is fine too. Like, that's just the human condition.
Yeah.
All right. I think the thing is, we're trying to get out of the human condition, which rightfully so, it hurts, it's painful, and we're trying to find ways to get out of it. But what if I told people that there is no way out of it?
And that's where you're like, that's where you quoted that life is suffering. Right. And it's like, and then, but you get to kind of control over what or how much. And that power that you put in, specifically when he was crying, y'all, at the end of the podcast episode we did. Dude. Like
none of this stuff ever happens to Nathan, but when it comes to other people break down. Nathan's just like, what is all this stuff? People call you this, call you guru, call you that. I don't see there's any of those things. And he's just still like looking at me. He's like, what? He was crying. He doesn't buy it.
That's I'm gonna cut him off one more time and say that's the partner though, because even Winnie has moments where she's like, I don't even compliment you as a chef, but I'm over here cooking crazy fucking lamb dishes. So she's like, cool, turn the TV on. And you can't keep a major fan there all the time, or else you want to turn that fan off because of the buzzing noise. Like, you need the chill homie to be like, okay.
That person's got to see you through what you actually are, and strip away all the titles and all that stuff. So like Nathan, he just sees me as a regular guy until I have him vomiting. If I do Reiki on him, he'll start vomiting and stuff.
Yeah, that is true. That is
you'd
true.
You'd be like, no, must be the food poisoning. It can't be you.
I've seen it all. Like I've been around here for like 10 years now. So like
over 10 years,
I've seen everything. So you can't really impress me at this point. Unless you give me unless you give me like level 4 in the Yinnergy process. I've been talking about this thing for like, I don't know, 12 podcasts now. Give me level 4.
Oh yeah, I haven't given it to you yet. Sorry about that. I've been holding back. Oh. Yeah, I have a hard time giving him level 4 of Yinnergy. A very, very hard time. But you're gonna get it though, bro. You're gonna get it. Maybe at the end of this, maybe I'll send it to you. Because I could have sent it to you a year ago. I just don't know why my ego is telling me not to send it to you.
He's like a rapper who keeps on pushing the release date to his album. It's like, all right, it's gonna be August 24th. And then next year, fucking whatever. It's like, give me the energy, Morgan. What's going on?
Level 4, congratulations.
Yeah, so you've been doing the brainwave stuff.
Yeah.
At his own pace, though. Like, I've known this guy for 10 years. He's been doing Yinnergy for 10 years. He's now going on to level 4 after 10 years. Like, come on, bro.
Well, the thing is, it depends on the person who's giving it to. So I trust in your judgment.
Yeah.
Maybe that it's not. Maybe I shouldn't have it at the right time. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for it, but I'm up for the challenge. See what happens.
Right.
So
yeah, I think I know why I haven't given it to him yet, because I don't want this to ruin the podcast. I give it to him, and next thing you know, he's falling apart and whatever. And I say, hey, we got to do another conversation. He's like, and I'm like, oh man, I got to find a whole new co-host. So I've been selfish the whole time.
Keep it intact.
Keep it intact.
Fuck. Fair enough.
I don't bring it up in conversation yet, because he said it last week too. Say, yo, I haven't gotten level 4 yet. And I was like, get it, you'll get it. Weeks gone by, still hasn't gotten it yet. So yeah, but you'll get it someday.
Divine timing.
Yeah, divine timing.
Trust. Uncle Mo will enter the building when it's time.
When it's time, bro. Uncle Mo.
Honestly, we need to make some T-shirts that says momentum and stuff like that. I want to see that.
Yeah,
let's go. Idea. Yes.
Well, let's carry on. Let's carry on the conversation. Maybe especially for Winnie, maybe you have questions, or whatever based on what we spoke about. There were certain things that we didn't get to finish talking about. We can continue from there. Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I told Ellevan when I got home, I've been actually having a hard time articulating, because I think the understanding, if that's what you call it, is still like absorbing in my system. I haven't fully transformed. I'm in the cocooning process. And I said to him before the podcast, like, I don't know if I'm ready actually to have another conversation, because I feel like I'm
still digesting.
Questioning. It's not even questioning, actually. It's like more than questioning. So
it's like re-observing.
Honestly, yeah, like I don't know where to go from here, besides the fact that I just was able to articulate that I have less opinions than I ever have before since our last conversation. And that feels like great.
So I've drawn a very simple graph here, as you can see today. And here's what I landed on, explaining it like a sports coach. Is here is me, right? This being, this central point of being, okay? And here's the truth that I know, okay, in here. And here's another being and the truth that they know. So and here's an object. Here's an object, the thing, okay? I perceive the object and I try to tell them in pointless forms about the object. While I'm observing one side of the object, they're perceiving not quite the object, but my notes about it. So it comes with my knowledge bias, how this thing could be perceived differently from this being. That's another reality, and how I'm observing it. So here's the kicker. The more we try and explain these things as they go, this starts dropping. I cannot see the truth at its highest point. I am surfing by having my awareness and focus on it. It's dropping down. So I get further away from actually seeing the whole truth as I'm bastardizing it with list formations that are labels and informations about it. So basically, as divine as it feels to communicate, trying to push information on another being, you are distorting it, diluting it, oversimplifying it, and bastardizing it. It's like that thing, by the time I'm done dropping it all the way down, like I try not to let the observation of the thing get under half, because I know it's just bullshit. I know I'm just lying from here to here. So about the first thing I say might be true for half of it. But based on that graph, as I pull up this vitamin D thing, you see the vitamin D right now, and I'm seeing this side. So when you see this side and I'm saying there's a vitamin D on it, you're like, no, there's not. But it is the same item where you see vitamin D3 and I'm saying, no, it's not. I'm seeing this side.
That's right.
Every time you try to convince someone of a thing you're observing, you are like not only getting further away from the truth in your perception of it, because you're focusing on trying to give linear information, you're also distorting someone's experience with said thing. So basically, in this new understanding, there's no reason to feel out of control, because you can't like determine someone else's destiny in the way they're observing reality. Like, even if that object, if a singular reality, we're taking like a vitamin D bottle, but that's also just like history events, just anything, a relationship, like a frequency, anything. So yeah, that's really just been fucking cooking our brains, bro.
First and foremost, I have to say that you're going to be an incredible philosopher. I'm going to put that out there right now. I'm like, because I was like, holy shit.
Thank you, bro.
I like the way how you took that and broke that down.
Thank you.
I'm going to say on top of that is all of that is okay. Right? Human beings, that's all we do. If you look throughout human history, all we do is trying to distort people. We're trying to convince people of ideas that aren't inherently true. Right? And that's what we do. We do that with philosophy. We do it with religion. We do it with fashion. We do it with music. We do it with foods. We do it with everything. Right? And that's what humans do. Because remember, as I was saying in the podcast interview, that God is just doing the opposite of itself. So all we're doing is pure imperfections. It's what we're doing. And that's the human condition. It's that's what we're designed to do. Is about what you just said, though, is about catching ourselves and realizing that we're doing it.
Yeah, because
that's what you just explained there. It's like catching yourself and realize that you're selling a concept. And as you're selling that concept, and and the person is what did you say again? When as you look at the object and start to realize that your perspective of the object starts to diminish.
Yes, because the more you say something is one color, because you go into the oneness divine truth that even like just pure light once through a prism is all colors. So singularly, it is all colors. Yeah. But at one point, you're observing the green shade because of where you're standing. Prism. So you're saying it's green, but someone standing over here is getting purple. And for you to say that they're wrong because you're not standing where they're standing and vice versa, it seems so toxic of me. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh no, like this is
where you create dogma. All right, this is where you create dogma, and this is but this is how all religions and all philosophies have been created.
Oh, but it's
so that same delusion of concept is what creates the beauty of the different variations of religions and philosophies that we have.
Because they need certainty.
Yeah, it still has a benefit, But we just have to realize what we're doing when we're trying to convince someone of an idea of a philosophy of anything, right?
It feels like abuse almost. Like now, when I look
It
at
does.
it this way, I'm like, no, don't listen to your inner truth. Listen to mine.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, outside of, that's why I like being an artist, because I'm just telling stories. So this is my story. I'm not telling you about your story. I'm saying this is what happened to me, and this is how I perceived it. I hope I'm wrong if it's a negative story, or I hope I'm right if it's a positive story.
Yeah.
Like, that's generally writing a song for me, is like sharing a perspective. But
sharing a perspective. And the idea for me is, can I get the person to see both perspectives? Their perspective, because what they're saying is their subjective truth. It's valid. And what I'm seeing as a perspective is a subjective truth also holds valid. Can a person see both? But what I would like to do with any human being is, can I get the person to have a direct experience on their own so that they can see all perspectives?
Oh, and that's where you kicked us into, where even as my ego is taking my life serious, it's not so serious because there's a million others simultaneously, not only in my potential timeline, there's a million other outcomes that I could manifest by hopping on those timelines, but there's a million other blurbs of consciousness that we call humans also in their own narrative. And it kind of gives you this major zoom out where you're like, if it doesn't happen by Tuesday, take a fucking breath. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we get so impatient. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like fucking tripping all the time because it didn't happen last Friday.
Because it didn't happen last Friday, right? Yeah, because we think it's all about me, because it's an egocentric view. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's what the egocentric part of ourselves is supposed to do.
But again, my life.
You're having your life, and it's totally valid. But there's also an ethnocentric view, which is your group. That could be your significant other, it could be your children, it could be your family, it could be your social circle, it could be a race, it could be gender, it could be like class or creed, it could be nationality, could be ethnic group. It doesn't. That's the ethnocentric stage, and then beyond that, you have your world-centric stage, which includes all those things that I mentioned, but it also includes other species, other animals, all that type of stuff. And then you have, and also that could also include how you see your world. And then after that, you have your cosmocentric stage, which with a capital K, and that has to do with, can you see from the perspective of the entire universe? Capital K. That's right, Nathan. Capital K.
Capital K?
Capital K.
Get your cornflakes, motherfucker. Get your cornflexes.
Get your cornflakes.
Mr. T said, eat your cornflakes. I pity the fool.
I pity the fool who doesn't eat their cornflakes. Exactly. All right. And I think you meant to say special K for the cereal?
Yes, whatever.
Man, those commercials, man, Mr. T must have got the bag with those, eh?
I'm telling you.
I'll do a fucking cereal commercial. Holler. Like...
yeah, holler.
Not anymore. You don't get it for the...
I'm going to get the Cinnamon Toast Crunch deal.
You put it out there. Put it out there into the universe, right? Maybe you'll get it.
11 different spices.
You see? 11 different spices. See? Look at that. Look at that. Now you put it out there and see what happens.
Right. Speaking of manifestation, I talked to Morgan a couple of days ago about Will Smith and Jada Pinkett liking our podcast. So
cool.
I had a dream about it. I saw them. I'm just like, yo, Morgan, they're gonna like our podcast. We're gonna have them on one day. He's like, that's not gonna happen. Don't worry about it. I've already met them. It's okay. But they're gonna be on the podcast. But like, Morgan. And Morgan's like, don't worry about it. It's okay. It's whatever. It's like, yo, just wait and see.
About it.
I ain't gonna worry about it. That'd be great and everything, but whatever.
See, the magic is right in there, though. The magic is right in there.
Morgan,
right in there.
I know. I agree. Do you visualize? Do you dream of like what you want to attract? Is that part of your pride? No, it isn't. Yeah.
No.
You're just being.
Yeah, I don't care about. I used to care about that back in the day. Remember when that documentary, was it the documentary that came out, The Secret? Remember that?
Yep. We talked about that yesterday.
My teacher was on that documentary, Bill Harris, the late Bill Harris. He passed away a few years ago, but he was in that documentary. So at that point in my life, I cared about that. I was like, oh my gosh, I can manifest things that I want and all that stuff. But after a few years after that was 2006. By 2008, was it 2008, 2009, whatever year it was, when I had my spiritual awakening, all that stuff was removed.
Yeah, you can't. That's what I was going to say. I can't imagine understanding the reality through your perspective and trying to force something. It's almost like sometimes when you're trying to bring something into this dimension, humans, it can feel like through the practice of even metaphysical, you know, processes that bring manifestations into reality, you're almost like trying to adjust something, you know, but like you're at a point of acceptance where you're like, great. So I think the magic, you know, you're like, great. Like if the toast is burnt or raw, it's just bread. And you're like, it's great. You're like,
to some degree. Like I'll still scratch a lottery ticket. Like, if I see a lottery, I'll still scratch it and say, let me see.
You'll roll the dice.
Yeah, and to see what happens. Like I scratched one, I think it was the day after. When did we do the interview? Was it Wednesday?
Yeah.
Thursday.
Thursday.
So on the Friday, I scratched a lottery ticket. Like which one was it? $1,000 a week, whatever that thing was. Yeah, I scratched it, and I felt my heart going. I saw the first one, and I saw the second. I was like, ha ha ha! And I see a third. I'm like, shit. Damn!
Shit.
All right, but I kept scratching and I won $16. So it's like, okay, that's
nice.
Let's go.
That's 3 other tickets. All right, so I still get the joy of like winning. In the moment, it's like, oh, let's see what happens. I do that, but I don't necessarily sit there and say I'm gonna manifest this into my life or anything like that. I don't do that.
But you'd entertain it, like
I entertain it in the moment.
Yeah, so it's like you have this self-worth to actually embrace it. Like if Nathan's like, guess who we got on the podcast next
I'll be like, what? Will and Jada?
Yeah. I loved Will Smith. Dude, it broke my heart when Eminem was breaking Will Smith's balls because Will Smith damn near got me into hip-hop. P. Diddy and Mace did, but then like, man, Will Smith had some bangers.
He did have some bangers. Yeah.
Dude, like that Miami song, Big Willie style. I remember legitimately thinking Y2K was going to happen, and I listened to Millennium, you know, and we gon' party like it's night. Hold up, it is. I was in my bedroom listening to that. I'm like, this is it. Like, this is the last thing I ever listened to.
People don't give him enough respect when it comes to the hip hop game, but he contributed a lot to the game. And the thing is, too, he and Jazzy Jeff, right? Because I'm going back from the beginning when Will Smith as the Fresh Prince. Yeah, but even before that, I was a fan, and I would listen to some of his stuff. And he also came up with some stuff that weren't humorous or comical, and there were bangers too. So I know two sides to Will Smith. So when I hear his stuff, when he comes, I was like, yo, this guy has brought to a lot to the hip hop game. Without Will Smith, hip hop wouldn't even be what it is today. You have to include Will Smith.
I absolutely agree. And he played his role just like Puff Daddy in bringing classic soul music, like just the two of us.
Yeah.
Like that even drew when I was listening to that. And then like my dad knew the original, just the two of us building castles in the sky.
Who was the singer again? Was it Curtis Mayfield?
Sting? Or no, originally before that, Donny Hathaway, I think did. No.
Who
did that originally? Because I know
just the two of us.
Sting and the Police did a version of it too.
Oh, did they? Yeah, it goes before that. It goes before it. You sure?
It goes before that. No,
it goes way before that.
Before it was rock music.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, like that cross genre blending, it gave an opportunity for, you know, hip hop to kind of be in that mainstream space.
And he was the first rapper to win a Grammy.
Oh my God, that's right. Well, if you consider it was because rap is already that thing for sure.
I did not know that.
He was the first to win the Grammy, at least for the hip hop, because before that, I don't think they had a hip hop category.
Oh yeah.
So when they added a hip hop category into the Grammys, he was the first one to win that.
He just got so much hate from actual hip hop purists because he didn't swear, which is kind of
there's that because there's a corniness to it that it would contradict what's happening on the streets. Yeah. But people have to realize that hip hop is not just one thing. It's many perspectives, and people are sharing their perspectives of hip hop within that space. And that has to be recognized.
How corny would it be? I mean, he is pretty G. Like if you think about like Will Smith, like he went to jail for knocking someone out and killing him. Nobody knows that. Like he's actually like a bit of like don't fuck with Willie in the streets, you know, like and he's a big boy, like and he gained it all from music, lost it all, like he's been through it.
Made $1 million and lost $1 million. because he owed money to the to what do they call it in the States?
IRS.
The IRS, yeah.
IRS, yeah.
Here we call it something different, but yeah.
He does.
So
he does
all of that, that's pure gangster right there.
Yeah, and he's pure Philly boy, like for sure. But like
straight from Philly.
That he didn't choose to wear it in his lyrics. He decided to like dream upwards. Like that was one of the first examples of like being a self-aware creator right there. Just contextually. Because I was a Tupac fan over Willie every day, any day. I mean, just in the time period of when Willie was like out, like I was one of those ones that was like, come on, unless it's saying, unless it gets my cortisol going. If I can't identify through the painful situations I'm observing and it's not caked into the music like that, you know, we kind of like as humans sometimes circulate the pain. We're talking about triggering your pain body on the pod, and you're right, that felt real to me. But what was happening with Will,
and that's also real.
That's just those experiences I was having, and I almost needed guidance and needed to feel like I wasn't alone in certain situations. But then when you think about what Will did, is like he came from that to dreaming into existence Miami, and like there was guidance there too,
and becoming one of the biggest movie stars of our time.
I mean, that's the thing.
That's vision. Like
he was the original, like Bad Boys. Like I still want that Porsche. Like and running with the shirt off. Like
that's Will right there.
The
shirt open. The open shirt's like, yo, I want to be Will right now.
And he was doing it in Jordans. That's what I was like.
Jeez.
Like jeans and Jordans and an open button shirt and just
like Will's the man. He's the man.
Shout out Will.
People can't deny that.
I mean, it's nice also to know that he's like a human. Like before the slap, we placed him up on a pedestal. We were like, this guy's super human. Nothing is wrong with him. Like he's a perfect specimen, you know?
Yeah, I didn't do that. I didn't do that.
When he had a moment,
of course you didn't, bro.
I'm like, this guy's gonna hit someone at any moment. The way how things are going, like this guy's gonna smash someone any moment. People better watch out because this guy's about to burst. Because I sure would have. If all that stuff was happening in my life circle, I would have burst a long time ago. It wouldn't happen at the Emmys or at the Academy Award. Yeah. I am fucking you up right here in the moment.
I can totally see it.
Don't talk about me in the relationship. I would have fucked everybody up way before the Academy Award. So he has strength. He has a high threshold because bro, I would have broke a long time.
I could see Morgan breaking out like no frills, like, sir, would you like some chicken?
I want some chicken. Chicken down here.
So
grab the cashier and just
Fuck. Yeah. I know the tension is real, right?
I've been trying to tell people that for celebrities, it takes a lot. Celebrities take on a whole lot. It's because of their paychecks. I think that's what keeps them, keep them at bay. But they take on a lot. I don't think the average person understands what a celebrity goes through on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Or like what awareness is required to exist in that space. Even when we feel that building up the podcast to a great community and having recognition when we go to these events and when we wear the Disciplined Stoners thing, or say if someone recognizes you for what you do, like stand up or like writing or philosophy or like rap or whatever, someone's like, hey, that's Ellevan or that's Disciplined Stoner. You put on this like professional facade that allows you to operate from a higher perspective where if someone talks shit at you right now, it's like, this isn't just you. This isn't just that person. This is kind of everything you've built and all your reputation. And someone's almost self-documenting what it's like to interact with you. There's all this peripheral context that goes into even like being that professional being, and then you take it to another level of being like globally adored. And if you have one bad day too, that shit can be held against you, and now you're the asshole and
oh my god,
fuck, and people write about you and like all that shit. It's like, dude, I have to take a shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, please get out of my fucking way right now. I'm going to the bathroom. I'm a human being.
I'm a human being, for Christ's sake. Yeah, that's so true. And I'm sorry, I cut off Winnie. Winnie was onto something. It felt it was
Winnie's
something big,
Nathan.
and I jumped in. Yeah. See that look she just gave you? That's how I feel about Nathan.
Fuck you, Morgan. Fuck your momentum. Fuck out.
You made me a Nathan? No one wants to be a Nathan.
Oh, man.
So
Yo,
true.
Oh, we do,
no,
bro.
but, you know,
The
at least I
look
get
she
to lay
gave
down.
you.
At least I
You
get
see
to lay
the
down.
cut eye?
Yo, man.
She gave you a black girl cut eye just now. It's like you a what?
She knows how to access me.
You made me into a Nathan?
In my defense, I do have resting bitch face.
Okay.
Yeah, so sometimes I come off across and it's
She nailed it though. She's right.
in my heart.
Yeah, she knows how to access me.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep him in his place. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is
fuck you too, Nathan.
Sorry, Whitney, please go on. Continue.
This is we're 15 years in now. So I think
15 years.
Communication has been like a wonderful part of our growth as a relationship. And so I think we're lucky enough to dive into some of like the less, I guess, perceivably valuable parts, character traits of ourselves, and be able to take constructive criticism from one another and grow as a couple.
I'm banking on it. Like I'm banking on her telling me what's wrong with me.
That's good.
Well, and
you're that open.
Yeah.
I mean, but also the other side of that is that sometimes you assume that something is wrong with you when it's not.
I'm so used to being the bad kid, bro, that I almost like look for it. Like, so it's like, because it's like, who wants to get kicked out of class? I'm like, I'll leave. Like, fuck it. Like, I've always just been like that. Like, if there's a rule to break, I'm like, I'll push the button. Like I don't care. Like, it's like, I got drafted to my own team of like, fucking leave me alone. Like, you know,
your own team.
You know, it's like, I'm good. Like, you know, I don't need someone to tell me I'm good or not. But like, so I basically always live in that pain sometimes of like, by the time someone says you're bad or you've done something wrong, I'm like, I assume so. Like now I went from that to the difference of, yeah, but I don't feel sorry for myself anymore. It's not a victimhood. Wow, they were mean to me. I'm the bad kid. It's like, try to fit a fucking square peg in a round hole. It's like, no, of course it didn't work. Like the rules, like it doesn't mean anything to me anymore if you say I'm bad or in trouble. I don't care. Like I hope so. I hope, because I'm gonna turn out corny like y'all.
But
so
I would argue that you do care.
No, but now, well, that's why it hurt, right? Everyone wants to be accepted. You're still a human. But I found my own. Rise or
rise.
The music community, like exactly, like I found the soul where I needed to find it, but I got accepted where I needed to, but I'm saying now my perspective, thanks to me and Winnie's communication and healthy times of critiquing, I'm actually looking at it like, oh, like I'm going to the mechanic, like you're gonna tune me up.
You're gonna tune me up.
Like I was holding on to me being wrong contextually, where it's like, no, it just wasn't harmonizing my behavior in that situation, or my perception and that action, or that person and my vibration. And it's just like, there's no right or wrong, closer to your way of thinking, Mo. And this is now more like, okay, go for it. Like if I have the capacity to change it, I will. If I can't, oh well.
And it doesn't mean that if something is going wrong, don't fix it. Right? You're supposed to fix. Yeah, you're supposed to fix it. I just don't want I don't want a person to be attached to that.
To the outcome.
To being
attached to the idea of needing to fix something. From the ultimate perspective, there's nothing to fix. Everything's perfect as it is. Right? From our perspective, we are doing things that may be wrong to the group or to the community, or doing right for the group or for the community. What I'm saying is, regardless if you're doing something right or wrong, that is of the goodness, that's of the will of the ultimate self.
Yes.
To have the experience. So you can look at it as, right now in the role that I'm playing, within the script that's written, I am doing wrong. But in the script is also written that Winnie is going to set me on the right path.
Exactly. And that's
from a script perspective.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I'm going to stay shitty in what I'm doing and not change.
No.
But if that's the thought that the person is having within that moment, that's what is coming out of the will of the ground of all being.
Yeah, and that's why I say I have the self-acceptance now, where there's the lack of judgment and the triggering from being wrong. I'm just accepting if I have the capacity to evolve that current perception or not. That's the excuse now. Is like I say, I want to be a better singer. So I know I got to grow at that, and I got to define what parts of singing I want to be better at. Doesn't mean I'm going to be able to pull some Usher licks tomorrow, but I'm going to just know that in the next couple months, I got to see some progress when it sounds like I'm singing a song and I'm hitting all of these technical
notes,
points,
right? Yeah.
Right? Or just the technical, being the breath control, using the chest voice instead of always going to falsetto, small stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
the trills within the song, whatever it is.
However, I nail those, and it's kind of like has this patience thing. But then you're right, you got to check ourselves, because if it's like if you know your car's out of gas and you still keep driving it, then that's your ass when it fucking breaks down.
There's there's a problem there from the perspective of the ultimate self. Yeah, that's what was supposed to happen. Right? Yeah. So like, go ahead, Winnie.
Can these two, I like states of being, I know that they coexist, but I'm just like, if we're trying our best, like, are we trying our best to come from highest perspective all the time? Because that's when I feel the disconnect from human perspective. It's like, if everything is divine all the time and nothing is going wrong
or right,
yeah, then
it's
what
neither wrong
am
or
I
right.
doing here?
Well,
what am I doing here?
Look at it this way. Just say you had you're the producer of a TV show, of a movie. Let's go with a movie, right? And in the movie that you producing, you hired a director, you got writers, and people got together and created this amazing script that's going to be directed and produced as this movie. In the movie, things are going right and wrong in the movie. And what makes the movie interesting are the things that are going wrong. Watching the movie from the standpoint of the viewers know that the people in the movie are acting and they're following a script, and they're creating a script that creates highs and lows. Now, if the actors in the movie believed that the movie script was real, that would be a problem. That would cause chaos. But the actors, as they play out the roles within that script, they know that it's just a movie. So there's nothing wrong with what's happening in the movie. So when the person's acting like they're killing someone, that's not a real thing. They know that they're not really doing that, right? So from an ultimate perspective, when the empty witness, I shouldn't even say the ultimate. I'm going by the empty witness standpoint, because there's a step lower, right? So from the empty witness standpoint is watching the script play out, and there's nothing wrong with the script, because that's the way how the script was written. From the standpoint of the egos that are in the movie who believe that the movie is real, we see right and wrong and things going wrong, and our job is trying to fix it or not fix it, right? But from the ultimate standpoint, it's just a script. So it's a movie, it's a play of things going right and wrong.
Oh, it's like, is God like? Sorry, I'm gonna cut you off.
Go ahead.
Sorry to stop your momentum, but well, it's like God, like a fucking the ultimate moviegoer. Like, like he just loves watching us do a bunch of dumb shit all the time. Just fucking up.
From the empty witness perspective, from the ground of all being, it's neither the witness or the doer.
It's just an expression.
It's everything all at once. But from the empty witness perspective, it's a spectator watching its own divinity play out, but from a physical form, from a physical standpoint. Right? So it doesn't mean from our standpoint, don't change anything, don't fix anything. It just means that if you can see it from the empty witness standpoint, it's just a play that's playing out, and it's made perfectly in every way. It doesn't mean that things in the movie doesn't mean that things that are happening in the movie aren't imperfect. That's just the script that's playing out, that things in the movie are supposed to be imperfect, because that's why it's interesting to us in the first place.
Now, we talked about something on the pod a little bit that kind of fits as a nice bridge for this point of understanding and conscious expression: free will. There is
Will Smith.
There you go. Free Willy, baby. Let's get Will back in here. I will. It's I mean, if you wanted the affirmation that really works, you got to say I am, right? You got to own it. So it's like the will from the I guess it's in the ego perspective. I like everything comes back with taking responsibility for building this neat little story, and why I think your heightened perception of the reality is so important to tap into is because you just don't take it as serious. You realize that it's almost like a form of meditation, understanding that perspective, even though we've agreed that meditation is sitting in stillness. But it's like, if you wanted to do, you know, the whole law of attraction, Bob Proctor perspective, you look at them as like almost ego destiny path shapers. Like you can control, just because I've gone through the personal realization in my life from victimhood to taking responsibility for the outcome of my manifestations due to my thoughts. So when you remind me that I step outside of the little POV, I'm in the movie, you know, I'm believing I'm that character, and you're like, this is a game, and I get outside of it, and I'm like, the story I've been telling myself, it's like I'm observing the mechanics of manifestation, and you take it one step outside of that, where it's like, come see, come out, like, you know, like fucking, it's all good. Like either way, if you manifest that dream life or not. So it takes this kind of pressure off of the back of the ego destiny liver that wants things to go a certain way.
Go a certain way, yeah.
You know, and it's like, it could be your whole life work. You almost bring this ease to being able to proceed without pain. And that's,
if you're able to let go of that part of the ego.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean you have to stop building though, because like I love, like what I've been feeling, like Winnie's like literally like I can barely articulate like what to say now because I have zero opinions, so that's so amazing. But for me, I've maybe been in this perspective, like come and go. Like I think you're living there, but like I visited this a little more frequently than Win, so she's digesting it as an absolute truth now because you've exemplified one whole beingness of that continuously, no matter what we asked you, and that's so fun. But for me, I love it. I honor it. I want to go here often, daily, and I will, and I do. But as far as proceeding with my life, I still want a Bentley. Like, I think that would be nice. Like, I just, for no other, it's not a social status. Yeah. I think it would be nice to transport myself to 7-Eleven in a nice vehicle. No, just period. And I'm going to continue to proceed to try and manifest that, even though I know it doesn't matter if I get it or not. And that's a sweet spot.
But what I'm saying though is, whether you try to vision a Bentley or not, that is the will of the higher. That is the will of ground of all being.
Yeah.
Right.
And I trick it though a little bit.
We're not doing anything in this process from that perspective. We're not doing anything for it's the ego is supposed to want these things.
Yeah.
Right. That's what the ego does. Right. I'm trying to speak in a way that's kind of beyond the ego. Yes. So we have to start watching what the ego is doing, because the ego is what is playing out the script, is playing out the role. There's a part of you, the empty witness, that can watch all that watches the ego play out his role, whether it wants a Bentley, whether it wants to open a store, wants to open a record label, wants to become a movie star, wants to win a Grammy. These are just things that the ego does. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Did you just read that off there?
No, read what?
You can't see it.
That's like not on there. I'm just saying.
Oh damn,
you're
freaking me out.
You're nailing the goals here, bro. You're nailing the goals.
So, like, is it on that board right now? Like,
oh my god!
Summoned our gratitude journal list.
I'd be the biggest fraud ever. Just read it off your own list. Get it right back to you. Oh my gosh, how is he doing this?
No, that's our disciplined stoners. We have a thing that's like, what is a disciplined stoner? So we have a
oh, interesting.
Sorry, continue. I cut you off.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, it's just this is what the ego does. I know a lot of people like to take ego and make it look like this bad things, like get rid of the ego. Look what the ego's doing. I'm saying there's a part of you that's a bigger self than the ego, and that bigger self can witness and watch what the ego's doing. Regardless of what the ego's doing, you can still go and become rich, do all those things.
Yeah.
Even if you became a spiritual guru, I'm still saying that's the ego's doing.
Yes.
Right? You're just playing the role of a spiritual guru. That's not who you are. It's not what you are. You're just playing the role of a spiritual guru. That's what you chose to do in this reality. But from the empty witness, the empty witness doesn't care if you're a spiritual guru or not. It's just watching its own perfection, watching its own divinity, as it's the empty witness watching what the ego's doing.
Mm-hmm. So
right?
you're not even trying to necessarily rescue people from pain. You're just saying, as you experience it, be aware that this is your part in that role.
Be aware. But again, it doesn't mean the ego may still try to get themselves out of the suffering.
Yeah.
Right. But you're just watching your ego do all that.
But there's
for the greater good of the ego. but at the end of the day, from the grand scheme of all things, what does it all mean? It doesn't get you any closer to heaven. It doesn't bring you any closer to hell. You're just playing out a role.
Yeah.
Right. None of that matters from the ultimate self perspective. The ultimate perspective of the self is beyond space and time. Nothing you can do can harm it. Nothing you can do can taint it in any way, because you are the ultimate self playing out the manifestation of what the ultimate self chooses to play within the body of Ellevan, within the body of Winnie, within the body of Nathan, within the body of Uncle Mo.
Yeah. do you believe in self-betterment? Like the feeling good nature?
Sure, from the ego standpoint.
Of just striving for more.
Yeah, from the ego standpoint, sure. If that's what the ego chose to do.
Oh, so
you know, me being Morgan in this space, claiming to do all these things that I'm claiming to do, it's just a role that the character Morgan is playing. Right? So to achieve Teriatita, to attain Teriatita, again, it's just a role that Morgan is playing within the reality that's been created by the ultimate, the ground of all being.
What tortilla?
Teriatita. Tortilla.
Sorry, what's that?
I'm gonna have some Teriatita for lunch today.
Hey, trattoria. Sorry.
Number one.
Teriatita. Teriatita means fifth. It means the fifth. It's the fifth state of being. So in the state of being, you have, which I think I mentioned when we were doing the other interview, we were talking about the waking state, the dreaming state, the non-dreamless sleep, or maybe it was with Nathan and Patricia, our last conversation. So there's waking, dreaming, dreamless sleep, Turia, which is the empty witness, right? It's watching its own divinity playing out itself, but within a physical, gross realm, gross, subtle, causal, all that stuff. And then you have Teriatita. Teriatita means fifth, and that's the fifth state, which is the non-dual state, where everything, there is no distinction between anything. So non-duality means not two. It also means one without a second. So all there is just this one. There is no second thing. There's nothing outside of itself, and that's non-dual, right? So you experiencing all five of these things right now, even though right now in this present moment we probably only are aware of the waking state. And when you go to sleep, if you start dreaming, you're aware of your dreaming state. And if you have a dreamless sleep, you can become aware of your dreamless sleep state. That can happen too.
Okay, so this is I have it. I love that you have these are actual names and things. I have a perception of these shapes in the universe, and I label them dimensions. I just say like third dimension, physical, fourth dimension, thought, fifth dimension, oneness. Like where I go when I meditate and I click into that step back perspective. And then it can go beyond that. I think there's probably another explanation for the relevancy of them actually being dimensions. But I kind of just like when I talk to people, I'm like, do you perceive this third dimensionally, meaning physically? And then do you perceive vitamin C fourth dimensionally, energetically, or through mind and thought? And then fifth would be the idea that, again, kind of it's all perfect. It's all one. It's all like part of a whole. That's so cool. So I got to get the names of those and explore those from you, those different levels of perception.
And the first three everyone is aware of. Everyone knows, at least everyone knows about the first two, waking and dreaming. Not everyone is going to be aware of the dreamless sleep, but people realize that I didn't dream last night. People have that realization. I don't think I dreamt last night. They could have been in the dreamless sleep. And then you'll meet very few people who've had the experience of Turia, which is the empty witness watching all of its own manifestation play out. And then you have Teriatita, where you realize that there is no parts, there are no separations. Everything is this one unity of being and then that has its stages too. So there's that, and it goes all the way up to absolute pure absolute monism and all that. But yeah, but there's terms it's just for the intellect to latch onto, but they mean nothing from the standpoint of ultimate being. But that's what we do. We separate things, right?
Yeah. It's nice to identify, though, for the sake of communicating.
For the sake of communicating, and just for the ego, right? Yeah, we need to do these things from that standpoint.
What we do communicating, like right now, is we're basically using our tools of communication and symbolism to get on frequency with each other or harmonize in relative frequencies. Yeah. So it's kind of like a
without being attached to it, because the attachment is what causes the suffering.
Right. And then so we can explore different thoughts together. And I think it's very nice. And like when you see humans come together and communicate, it's beautiful.
I want to know
fun little game.
If you think that intuition comes from the egoic state, the empty observer, or the all-knowing everything.
Well, that just comes from your survival mechanisms, right? Those things are necessary for. Well, you're talking about intuition as opposed to talking about what's the other one?
Instincts.
Instinct. Yeah, instinct is more of the survival. Intuition, of course, is coming out of the that part of the mind that can foresee something before it happens, or things of that sort. But that's just these are just things that the mind does. I still wouldn't say that it's coming from. Everything is coming from ground of being anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Everything is coming from that anyway. But if we're talking from the primal human being growth standpoint, that's stuff that the mind can do once the mind becomes more refined. Yeah. So when you're able to refine the mind, one of the natural things that happens with the mind, it becomes more. It's better with dealing with manifesting or having the ability to have intuition.
You're tuned in, and it's
it's a frequency. So the mind jumps and is able to tune in on a frequency that would be the frequency of intuition.
It's proof of eternity. It's proof that everything is happening simultaneously, so it can send echoes of self-perceived information in another form. Because if everything wasn't simultaneously happening at once, that intuitive nature to land at a certain desired point or destined point or it's been written point, it's like there is intermingling of something else going on for sure.
That's one way to look at it. Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Do we have a relationship with all knowing everything, all being?
You are all knowing, all being. But if you want to use words in terms of the ego having some kind of a relationship with the higher self, Turiya up to Turiya Tita, sure, you can look at it that way. Having a relationship, but you are it. Even the ego itself is just the egoic manifestation of ultimate self.
Yeah.
Right. There are no separations, but you can put that in there. But as the ego becomes more transparent, you can say from that standpoint, when the ego becomes more transparent, it's closer to being identified as closer to the empty witness up to non-dual self.
But would you want to know? Would you really want to know everything?
Well, I personally, as a human, as the ego known as mortal, wouldn't want to know everything that's happening in the moment. That's true. Because to know everything it's a painful ordeal. But when you have the experience of absolutely knowing, it's not about you knowing anything. You become knowing itself, and it's all knowing. So it's the knowledge and everything of the entire universe. But it's not like spirit is having knowledge. There is a level of that, of course. When you go up, it's not the spirit having any knowledge of anything. You are knowledge, because remember, you're everything. There are no distinctions between anything. So you're also all knowledge.
That makes sense. Have you ever heard of a guy called Matthias De Stefano?
I don't think so.
He remembers his past lives.
Have you, Nathan?
No, I haven't. No. Okay.
I would have been very surprised if you did. I was like, Nathan knows about what?
Shut the fuck up. I know things. Just because, okay, I'm a Morty.
You saw the look. You saw the look that Winny gave Ellevan when he.
Shut up.
You saw that look, right?
Shut up. All right, shut up.
I need to go and play that look back. I didn't feel that look.
It hurt my heart. I'm like, oh shit, no one's being Nathan. I want to be Nathan.
Yeah, you'd be Nathan.
You'd be Nathan. Go ahead, Winnie. Go ahead.
So he claims that he can remember past lives from thousands of years ago.
Reincarnation.
So in the like Atlantean times and like different stages of the earth that might get presented to us as theoretical at this point instead of had actually happened. And I kind of just wanted to know your thoughts on like, have you ever heard of the Akashic records or like, and is that all in your belief system, or you just don't care? You're not, it doesn't matter. The past doesn't matter.
It does matter because it's what you are. What I'm looking at right now is karma. I'm looking at karma right now. You're the combination of everything that happened prior to you, right? So the past is necessary. Without a past, can't have a present, can't have a future. So all that stuff is necessary, right? From the ultimate self, past, present, and future is happening right now.
Because it's experienced it all.
It's
already.
Not separated between the old you and the young you. It's the same time happening.
But it's the same time. Time is within it, but it's also beyond time. But the presence of the presence of absolute the presence of the ground of all being, past, present, and future. Past, present, and future is how the ground of all being experiences what you call life, right? At least from the standpoint of the human being or anyone that sees has a timeline that's linear, right? But from its standpoint, past, present, and future is the same thing. Because remember, it's not just witnessing past, present, and future. It is past, present, and future. And past, present, and future is happening right now. So just say, let's look at it this way. Here's your physical body. And this is a real dense way of trying to explain this. Just say there was a microscopic being trying to get from one shoulder to the other shoulder, right? From its standpoint, it's walking on a landscape, which is you, but it's walking on a landscape, which is taking it from its timeline trillions of years to get from one side to the other. And that took time.
Across the Himalayas.
Yeah, but that took time. That was a time period of that thing trying to get to the other shoulder.
Yeah.
From your standpoint, you can see both shoulders. You can see your body. You can see whatever you're looking in the mirror. You can see your face. You can see both shoulders. So this thing can't see all of you because you're too grand. So it thinks that it's walking on the landscape and it's trying to travel from point A to point B. But from your standpoint, you can see your point A. You can see your point B because it's there simultaneously. You've always had two shoulders. The microscopic creature doesn't know that. It just knows that I need to get from this point to that other point.
Where the microscope.
But you see all of that right now in your present moment as Winnie. All right, so that's one way to look at it, even though it doesn't even compare to what's actually happening from the standpoint of the ground of all being. But just look at it, the ground of all being is time and space, but it also includes time and space, and it transcends time and space. All of that is included, but it's happening right now in this present moment, right now. There's no necessarily a past. There's no future. It's right now, but it's having the experience of being the opposite of itself. So as a gross physical human being, it's having the experience of linear time of past, present, and future.
Because we store it in our memories, but we can change our memories.
What are your thoughts on people predicting the end of the human being species?
That's more ego doing what it does.
More ego.
That's more ego doing what it does. The egos are supposed to do that because other egos enjoy that. Whether it's true or not, if people are able to predict it or not, that's just egos doing what egos do.
Just a story.
Just another story. Whether it's true or not, I can't sit here and say, well, that prediction is going to be true, right? Because when I claim that I've witnessed all of time in the simultaneous moment, I'm saying I'm watching and experiencing myself as all of the time. I'm not looking at a specific time. Yeah. I'm looking at all of it. So I couldn't tell you what the details are.
Right. So it's just zooming in or zooming out. It's like the luxury of being able to be a being. This being that you're observing from when you look back into it as a conscious blurb, because right now,
as a conscious blurb,
you know, like the thing in your mind that we talk about, the consciousness, like I'll say a red balloon right now, right? And you imagine that.
The red balloon.
You can see it in your mind, a red balloon.
Like
whatever that is, that's operating. It's like some call it imagination. It's consciousness. It has the ability to be anywhere. It's probably what leaves your body when you go to sleep, whether you dream or not. Like it can be perceived through the astral realm, but basically like that conscious.
Even though it doesn't leave the body, I have a thing for that too. But keep going.
So I'd love to hear about that. So, but like that thing, right? That I call it the observer. I broke my brain when I was in flow state in a good way, like how you broke our brain in a great way, right? To level it up. I broke through a perception when I was freestyling, when I was doing my busking run. I was doing like 5 hours in the hot sun. I started to be able to rap because the motor skill was so warmed up and I was in flow state. So my imagination was just working on a bit of like a rhythm. And I got to like out of where I was and go around the crowd and almost like hang out with people. And I was vividly there. Like I'm able to like look at people. Like I went around the crowd and I was still rapping. I was holding like 20 or 30 people as a little busking audience right on Queen of Spadina. And I remember being able to like observe people from that red balloon observer imagination space while my physical being was still going. So whatever that is,
that's probably like the astral body.
All right. So, but like it's a point of consciousness that I think I am, or I'm self-aware that I'm perceiving this reality from, whether I'm in my body or not. And I love my body and I love this experience in this time period. And the manifestations along this timeline are quite delightful and continue to be. So it's like I'm having a good time here this lifetime. Like as you were saying, Mateus would perceive it as one linear life. When that snaps back into that oneness or that consciousness, I want to just hear your theory on this as well as the other bodies you're talking about. Do I remain this blurb of consciousness still, or am I washed completely clean? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, do souls have personalities almost, like in your opinion, of this oneness, or we're always that we're playing out a little role here and we snap back in and it's just blank again, and it changes every manifestation, every lifetime, every incarnation, or am I always kind of like this? Like where do you land on that, like the characterization of conscious blurbs that like are a being
in reincarnation specifically?
If that's that's one way it can manifest, but like like specifically because you also can come back as a plant, but you know what I mean? Maybe I'm a plant that does something rhythmically like rhyme. You know, I feel like I have a tendency due to my soul. You know how people say like in another lifetime you came out like this, and then so similarly every lifetime you lean towards that type of manifestation. Or you think, nah, that's just coincidence, and you just totally wipe clean every time you die and come back.
Men in Black clean. Will Smith.
It depends. Will Smith. See, bring it right back to Will Smith again. That's amazing. Here comes the Men in Black. Here comes the Men in Black.
And that's another soul song. That's
another soul song. That's right.
Send a kiss.
I remember the original song. Because the lyrics were changed, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was identical.
Yeah.
Sorry, but that conscious blurbness, that imagination. Do you think like the being I am, and like that you are, like you can't remember? I think it's part of like the human experience to not remember at first, and then you can come to awakening. But like, do you think that you're one for eternity? Like I think a singular being, like a soul, like for eternity, or do you get washed clean? What do you think? Where do you land on that in your?
It depends. It depends on which body we're talking about. So like the one that you're talking about, where that part of you comes out and you can look at the audience when you're in that flow state, that is still not that's still not the empty witness. Those are things that the brain can do, the mind can do, because the mind is it's a bit complex. Not a bit, it's very complex. right? So that's one of the things that the mind can do. The mind can do that. So if you broke them down to different bodies, you have a subtle body that can do that, right?
Energetically.
Yeah, something like that, energetically.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is not necessarily my field, because I haven't studied this much,
okay.
But from my own personal experience, that is a separate thing. This is something that my mind can do, because not only do you have your physical body, you also have your subtle bodies too. So there's a subtle body that does what you're speaking of, that where it's able to witness itself or witness the audience as you're in that flow state. But it's still not the causal body or the non-dual body.
Because
right?
Yeah, it felt like I got to enjoy it while holding on to this ego's bias, because I was enjoying it.
Yeah, because you're enjoying it,
like
right?
If it was just a spiritual cosmic experience, I feel like I'd have a little bit more of a detached observation of it. So that's
yes,
a cool, interesting.
Yes and no. Because it gets tricky. Because it will still enjoy, but it enjoys everything. But the type of neutral that I'm speaking of is not necessarily.
It can look at a car crash and have the same reaction.
It still have the same reaction.
But so no, I was enjoying it too much as a good thing. So it makes sense that it might be a mind body.
Yeah, it's still attached to the individual ego, right? The other thing that you mentioned, the
point of consciousness.
The point of consciousness, which is the point of consciousness within you right now. That's what you're talking about?
Like that. I'm associating that. I'm associating my soul as having the experience of being able to make that red balloon appear. Your imagination and your soul kind of to be connected. That's my perception of like being a being.
If you look at it from the perspective of the soul, these are all expressions of the soul. But that thing itself is still not the soul. Right. So that's the imagination part, which your mind, your brain produces. Your brain produces stuff like that. That's what your brain is supposed to do. But it's still not. So sometimes people may say, call that the soul. I don't call that the soul yet. The soul goes even deeper than that. But that's something, that's a gateway. You can say it's a gateway to that. So that's one of the things that your mind can do. It has the ability to imagine, and you can imagine to the point where you can transcend your imagination into pure imagination, but imagination with a capital I.
Capital I?
Right? Because all of this is an imagination.
Yes.
Right? Capital I. That's a new cereal. Right? All of this is an imagination.
And it has a captain with one eye.
With one eye.
It's a pirate mascot. Capital I imagination.
Capital I imagination. Yeah, this whole thing is an ultimate imagination.
Yeah.
Right? So you're creating that right now, but not necessarily you as Ellevan is creating that. Now, when you die, let's just say if reincarnation is a thing and you die, do you come back with a clean slate? It depends. Again, it depends on which body we're talking about. So from the ego standpoint, that's going to be reform itself again into what you call Morgan, Winnie, Nathan, and Ellevan.
Or whoever it is
or
next.
Whoever it is next. It has a clean slate from that standpoint, because it'd be too overwhelming for an individual consciousness to remember all past lives, right? So from that standpoint, it would start off with a clean slate, but all that information is still there. So if you tapped into a higher level of your mind, that information is there, right? But not only is the information from the past there, also the information from the future is there too. You can also tap into future reincarnations to see what they look like. You can do that. That's never been a goal of mine, so I've never intentionally tried to do that. As an individual, but I am claiming that I've seen everyone's lifetimes all together simultaneously as one whole. I haven't necessarily went and tried to investigate or to see what's happening in other people's lifetimes individually.
Yeah,
because it's not
Morgan, why not?
Because from the non-dual teaching standpoint, that's not the goal. Because if I start doing that, that would derail me from trying to achieve Teriatita, because all these things are so interesting too that you lose a sense of the path. So the path is avoid all that stuff. If they happen, they happen, but you don't try to seek them out. So if they happen, let them happen, because remember, whatever happens, let it be okay. But the goal is Teriatita. So I didn't stop off on the wayside and try to experience these lifetimes. But I have experienced reincarnation and things of that sort from my standpoint, from going back into my past. I've done that, but I've never intentionally tried to do that. That just happened on my way to trying to discover something.
Yeah, that's what this Matthias guy claims as well too. That like from a young age, like it just started happening to him, and he was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Basically.
Yeah, and a lot of individuals get trapped in that because then if their goal was something bigger, that will happen to be, oh my gosh, I need to explore it, and they end up exploring that for the rest of their lifetime. They never get to experience who they actually are as pure being, as ground of all being, and that's fine too because you have many lifetimes where you can still get to do that. But you're taught in like every non-dual, not every non-dual lineage, but the ones that I've been involved in, that all these things are traps. The goal is spiritual enlightenment and nothing else. Anything that happens along that path, accept it, enjoy it, take it in, and be like, that's interesting, and keep it moving. But once, so that's why they say when you see the Buddha, shoot it. All right, because all these things you can look at them as forms of Buddha if you want to look at it that way. At least symbols. My interpretation of that. But when you see the Buddha, no matter how divine it is, shoot it, because that's not the thing that you're searching. That's not the thing that you're trying to discover. You're trying to find your true self, your true, absolute true self. And once the person has the experience of absolute true self, reincarnation, going to other dimensions, meeting spirit guides, meeting aliens, none of that really matters. Some things will sometimes happen anyway. I've done all those things, but I don't even tell stories about them. I may bring them up from time to time. I don't talk about them much because people are more interested in those stories than the ground of all being. So I try to avoid them.
Keep it.
I'm so wild. Oh my god, you should hear these stories. Oh my god, shit.
They're mind-blowing.
They're mind-blowing stories. But people get trapped in these stories, and people tell me more about these stories. I'm like, guys, the teaching is not about these adventures. It's about the ground of all. Keep it moving. It's about the ground of all being. But because people can't imagine that, they're like, I don't care about all that shit. Just tell me about the alien story about the. And you're like, oh, okay. Once upon a time, you get caught in that, and I'm trying to avoid all that because it takes up a lot of my time.
Sometimes you gotta sprinkle some candy for the.
Sprinkle, yeah, just a little bit.
Give them a pop hit once every 5. keep it candy for the kids sometimes.
Yeah, you see how Nathan's eyes lit up about those stories, because these stories are incredible, right? But again, people get caught up in them. It's like, no, the whole idea is if you get to experience the ground of all being as yourself, those things don't really matter too much.
And so would you say your ultimate goal then is to live in this state of ground of all being?
If that's the ultimate, that's the ultimate goal.
Your ego's journey.
That's the ego's journey to be in that. But I'm in that from a growth standpoint. I'm in that right now.
Yeah.
I thought it was
permanently there.
I thought it was everyone's goal, right? Isn't it everyone's goal to do that? You just didn't.
People just don't know that. So people will try to find this oneness in other ways. People will try to find oneness in relationships, which is very important in relationships. Just like the story that Winny and Ellevan were just talking about a little earlier. What they're really talking about is how can we make this thing into oneness, a unity between two people. That's the goal. Let's see. I'm going to meet this person, and I want to hopefully when I meet this person and we build a relationship together, that we find common ground in every area. And you start to realize we don't have common ground in every area. And you're trying to find ways to make it happen some way or another, unless you get to a point where you try to accept, okay, we're not going to find a common ground in this particular area. But most things we do. And it's just a better a way of trying to achieve oneness. So two people, two egos are coming together and trying to find a way to make the two egos be compatible in every way, shape, or form.
Harmonize.
To harmonize.
Yeah.
To sync.
Yeah, and sometimes you get on the same frequency, and sometimes relative frequencies.
Yeah,
and relative frequencies work for harmonies too. It's
they do.
Like when you listen to music, it's like a dub or a harmony. So sometimes you get on the same frequency and it's a dub, and sometimes there's a relative one. But there's a bunch of notes that don't work in between.
There's a bunch that don't work in between.
It's doing that work of like figuring it out, and that's fun. I think
that can be fun.
I want to, if you want to, right? If like the relationship value impacts your life enough, it's not even like you have to want to try. It's like you should eat well, right? Like, oh, you don't have to want to try to eat well. You know you should eat well. It's like sometimes it's costly, either time or money, but like you're either invested or you don't, and that results comes out in your life. I think that's become our intention, is to harmonize with like betterment, or like stay focused as consciousness to kind of like work 1% from where we are. And like that feeling of fulfillment, accepting that it's the ego's journey, is so much fun. It's just
and that'd be a great name for a book, The Ego's Journey. Because that's what it, that's what it is. How can two egos come together and try to make the attempt to become one? And this is why tantric sex is so important too. Why people engage in that, because it's about, let's try see if we can have a non-dual experience of two lovers coming together and experience oneness within, at least within, from the perspective of two people.
Beautiful. Yes,
yeah. Because exactly. Wouldn't it be amazing to actually blend with someone mentally and emotionally, and actually experience exactly what you're experiencing in that moment as you experience mine? That's like the ultimate goal for two lovers. Most people will never do this, right? Or could ever do this. But with practice, they could. It's just, it takes time and practice. It takes a lot of training to do that. But if I can get into your mind and have an intersubjective experience with you, is like the ultimate goal, would be the ultimate goal for a couple.
Oh, tantalizing thought. We actually talked about this morning that how cool it was that fucking but you for sure fucking, and that's what manifestation of it. But you said when we were chatting after the podcast, like how many things actually are sex or of a sexual nature. There's a mental exchange. We talked about like monogamy, non-monogamy, where it's like emotional compatible relationships that you get from others that you can't. We've drawn a line around physical sex, you know, in this part of the world, and our context of relationships and marriage. But like, yeah, we really been unpacking that as well since chatting with you, like this exchange that everything is kind of sexual in nature. And so mastering that on a physical level and understanding it would help nurture the ones that you manifest mentally as well.
Yeah, because it happens, sex happens on all levels. Physical, from the gross state, it happens from ether state, happens from a astral state, emotional, mental, causal, and non-dual. So this whole entire universe that we're in right now, the reason why it exists is because right now, as we speak, it's having the two polarities of that is having sex with each other. And that's what keeps everything intact. And then from there, you have smaller holons within holons within holons, and each of those holons within holons within holons are also having sexual interaction with itself, for itself, by itself, for the greater good of the higher self, of the ultimate self. Holons, yeah.
I love that.
Hold on.
Hold on. The hole's on. She's going, hold on. I'm like, oh God. This is so wrong, but it's so right.
But it's so right. Hold on within holons within holons.
Wow.
Hold on to your love.
I want to know your thoughts on, and we can get, sorry if this is a little like off what we were just talking about, but how can we see perceivable injustice in our lives and also hold the awareness, understanding that everything is as it is, everything is as it should be?
Well, you can't just do that with intellectual understanding, because all you do is you just end up creating, you just create you just end up bypassing, right? The reason why I can say what I say is because I'm trying to convey that I'm not using intellectual understanding to do that. My intellectual understanding still has a problem with any type of form of injustice. That would bother me as the ego. That would bother me. But from the empty witness standpoint, that's how I created it. Right? All that stuff that is happening is what allows the universe itself to exist. So all of that is part of it, because for whatever reason, the law of nature, it always includes polarity. You can't have one polarity over the other. It has to have the two polar opposites. You can't have one opposite over the other opposite. They have to have two. So for something great to exist, something terrible have to exist too. For something light to exist, something heavy has to exist, because the relative mind compares things based on its polarity, based on its opposites. Right? From the ultimate standpoint, there are no opposites. Both are exactly the same. So from that standpoint, it's easy to look at everything happening as it is. But from the ego standpoint, the ego would still have a problem with whatever it is, child molestation and all that type of stuff. Of course, that's what the ego's supposed to do, because the ego's purpose is to survive. All right, that's the purpose of the ego. So the ego is supposed to be that way. But when a person has the experience of ultimate self and embodies ultimate self, you look at it and you're not trying to do this. You're not forcing to do this. You just naturally do this, where you're erasing the border between positive and negative polarity, and you see everything as one thing, because you, from the standpoint of ultimate self, you see what that, in a sense, you kind of see what's actually happening. Like in that moment, you totally see what's happening, because everything that's happening, you are that thing that's happening, right? When you come out of that, the goal is that you become more integrated, so that when you look at things that are happening in your everyday life, or that's happening to your neighbors, or whatever the case is, you're witnessing it as the ego may still take sides, but the thing of what I'm actually am, the empty witness, doesn't take sides, because I'm both of them.
And you freed yourself from reaction.
I freed myself from the reaction. I freed myself from the impulses and the reactions of the ego and the it. At least from that standpoint, because a lot of people, when we're talking about the self, people are still talking about the ego. I'm trying to get beyond the ego. It's very hard to do, because if you haven't experienced Turiya, it's hard to see anything outside of ego. Because even as I'm talking about Turiya, my ego is creating a concept of Turiya.
Yeah. So
in this particular moment, but when you're in Turiya, it's the actualization. You're not creating a concept of Turiya, and Turiya gets a look at everything that's happening, because everything that's happening is the manifestation of Turiya, and you get to see it happening. When I come back to my ego now, because I had that experience, I can speak at least conceptually of what Turiya is doing as I'm looking at everything that's happening in front of me. And my goal is, as I evolve and the ego develops, that I'm able to look at any situation and not judge it and not create any bias, but I'm still on the side of good and trying to do whatever I can to make sure that good overpowers anything that's coming at it, anything that's the opposite of that, right? But the ultimate self, not the ultimate self, but the empty witness is not judging it or taking any sides or being biased with anything, because everything that's happening is the manifestation of this actual divine empty self, and all that stuff is happening is what, if you look at it from that standpoint, that's what forces us to try to find this absolute oneness. If you didn't have any bad stuff happening, you would never try to pursue it.
So then, without polarity and what we perceive as challenge in our human existence, we will cease to exist. Why would, if we didn't have anything for our ego to be threatened by?
Yeah, you'd just be God. You'd just be God. And God is trying to do the opposite of itself, because it can, because it has the power to do that. Right? Picture having a race, a hurdle race with no hurdles. It's not a hurdle race anymore. It's just a race.
You just run it.
Yeah. But the hurdles are put in place on purpose for the fun of, let's see how fast we can run from A to B by jumping through these hurdles.
And it creates new momentum, because you even go further when you jump. So it's like that new point of pain and challenge created you to figure out new body mechanics that sends you launching through the air.
Yeah,
skipping.
By doing that, it also contributes to the creation of better shoes, better cushioning within the shoes. All that stuff creates the evolution of shoes.
Consciousness just protects itself.
Yeah, because it has to protect itself, right? So let's create better shoes so that we can endure this feat of jumping over hurdles.
Feet,
right?
I see what you did there.
You see that feat, right? And it's the same thing with lifting weights. Imagine if weights had no weight. How would you build muscle if the weight had no weight? But to have that challenge,
it's resistance training. That's what it's actually called. It's resistance.
Yeah, resistance training, and the resistance is what builds muscle. So if you got rid of all that, none of that would mean anything. The problem is when it comes to our reality, we're very attached to our realities. So everything comes off as pain and suffering. But if you looked at it as the standpoint, well, this wouldn't make any sense if I didn't create this type of resistance, then this game couldn't play out the way it was supposed to play out. But because we're so attached to it, we can't see that.
Oh man!
Right. So so it's not about, oh, there's no good or bad anymore. There is good and bad from the standpoint of the survival of the ego. But if you see it as a game, it's like, oh, this stuff has been placed here to challenge my resistance, to challenge my threshold for living in this reality. And you already knew coming here, or at least playing out this role, if your ego would be able to handle that challenge.
Consciousness is like, well, let's set the stage. See, let's get this person over here.
Let's see if we could.
This thing and this, and then we'll just
this, and
let
see
it
what
play
happens.
out.
but if I fail at it, remember the empty self and the ground of all being cannot die. So it's okay from that standpoint because it can't die anyway. The character, the role has ended, but the person, the being playing the role, can't be harmed in any way. Just like how you can die in the movie. You didn't actually die. Your character died. You know, you moved on. Your reincarnation is you getting another role in another movie.
Yeah. Oh, that's why it feels so good to be an actor and book again. New
Right?
reality.
Every movie that you do, or every TV show you do, or commercial you do, is just another reincarnation of from the standpoint of the actor who's playing another role.
Although, help me with this, Mo. I keep getting cast as a douchebag. What the fuck, bro?
Because it's you.
They have me take my shirt off and be a douchebag and cheat. I'm like, what the fuck does it say about who I am on the surface?
He just looks like that kind of dude.
I look like the cocky douchebag. I'm like, fuck.
I keep getting these roles of the cocky douchebag.
It's better. Sometimes you see, like, in the TV shows, there's like a rapist guy and he keeps getting cast and cast. You just have that type of face, bro. And he's like, fuck.
This really sucks. As he's crying with his millions.
Yeah, he has a skinny nose, but a strong credit card.
A strong credit card. Right. Skinny and that happens. You get typecast into certain roles. And that's probably maybe that could be like a type of suffering for the soul. It gets typecast in certain roles throughout life until it figures out how to I don't know, perform some kind of facelift and change its traits so that it can get better roles within life. I don't know how that part works. But it may be something similar to what's happening here, because I keep saying that all this stuff is a physical expression of the soul.
The context of how you position yourself in your life is a constant renegotiation. I feel little upgrades for the soul, like how you want to be perceived and the responsibility for your behavior and like contributing something different. You make upgrades in your life. You know, there's something within your personality that thrives to want to learn more, to be in a different experience in life. Like your context with people and relationships changes based on age and how long you've known them or whatever, or them to you if they're older or younger. There's all these subtle dichotomies in like your positioning in your life. But then you constantly go through upgrades. Like even me, like when I first came to Rise, I was younger. And now if I go to Rise, I'm the OG. And it's like, whoa, that context changes. Like it's different.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, I'm still a kid at heart, but it's just like your linear time will reposition you in context to things, and your relationships will serve different roles.
Yeah.
But like as an individual, you like thirst for that, hopefully, like, you know, and how you can contribute to different people's lives. I think that's like a fun part of that joy, because if I believe in myself to do this or position myself here, I'll be able to make a brighter impact on other people's lives, and then like selfishly benefit from seeing that joy. You know, like
interesting. Yeah,
that's fun true. Little repositioning game. Like so much part of me wanting to get better at music is because I submersed myself in great artists and seeing them, and I'm like, ooh, it's like this fun competitive athleticism almost, where you're like striving to do better is actually like, you know, like that jumping thing. It's like I put this in front of me and it gives me a sort of pain, and there's this comparative nature or something, you know what I mean? But you almost use it to get better. Like, like that magical point, I think, is like really great. It almost feels like flow state in life. It's like there's better to do, but you're not killing yourself saying, I'm not good enough. You're not hurting yourself, stabbing with something you don't need to, but you're like, okay, I could reach that level. Like I see that I want to step on towards up that mountain.
Yeah, you do all of that without the attachment.
Yeah, and that's new for me. I've gotten a long way. Spite, pain, lack of intent, and just stabbing, and then just like work harder. And then it's like, nah, like I gotta like stop reliving traumatic stories in my head, and I gotta like wash up this consciousness here, and I gotta like reposition myself in my own head or soul. I think we started to explore something where I started to actually understand a lot of the things I was doing were mind mastery, not soul mastery or spirit mastery.
Yeah.
The ethereal spirit thing is almost more like messages come in like slow Tao paced messages like that are infinite, and the mind play I often do is all based on perception, which is cool.
Yeah, and we all do that with our minds. The mind is really just a tool so that you can transcend it, so that you can get to soul and get to spirit, because soul and spirit doesn't need evolving. It's perfect in every way, right? So by perfecting the mind, we use it as a tool to transcend itself so that we can experience soul and experience spirit. Now, soul is spirit. Soul is just an individualized version of spirit. That's spirit's way of experiencing individual perspectives. But spirit and soul are one and the same. So in Hinduism, that would be called Atman would be the soul, and Brahman would be spirit. But in Advaita Vedanta, Atman and Brahman are exactly the same.
Yeah,
it's just from two different perspectives.
It's a dime and a dollar.
A dime and a dollar. Well,
like a dime could come from a dollar or whatever. I say like it's part of
well,
it.
no. I would look at because that would be a little different analogy. In that case, I would have to take all 10 dimes and say the 10 dimes would be Atman and the dollar would be Brahman, because the dime still makes a dollar. And you can do that with 100 pennies versus dollar. You can do that with four quarters versus dollar, same thing. So you can look at it that way. So imagine if people were fighting over, is it 4 quarters or is it a dollar? Both people are right. Right? It's 4 quarters. Yep, you're right. It's a dollar. You're right. No, one of you can only be right. You can't be both be right. But we are right, because 4 quarters makes a dollar. Right? So it's the same thing when it comes to Atman versus Brahman, right? The Atman, which is the soul, and the soul is made up of if you want to call it, I don't know what the term is when it comes to the measurement in our mind that makes up the quarter, that makes up 25 cents, right? You can look at that as the different aspects of the ego, the different facets of the ego that makes up this quarter. And then you take these 4 quarters, which makes up that makes up the full thing of the ego, which transcends the ego into the actual soul, because ego is just a physical a gross expression of soul, right? And you have your 4 quarters, and when you use your mind conceptually, you understand that 100 of these things, which is made up of the 4 quarters, makes up a dollar. Same thing. So all I'm doing is trying to get people to remove the concept that's happening, that's causing the block in between. Is it 4 quarters or is it a dollar? All right. We all know, based on how we work with money, that we know that 4 quarters is a dollar. Right. And back in the day, we used to have the dollar bill. It's still a dollar. We have the loonie, at least in Canada anyway. We have the loonie, because there's people listening who are not from Canada. All right. We have the loonie, still a dollar. All right. All we're doing in this within our lifetime is trying to realize that it's the same thing. But it can't just be a concept. It can't be it can't just be something that you're just creating a concept in your mind. You have to actually know with absolute surety that 4 quarters is a dollar.
And that brings it to the body. So basically, yeah, it's like the trio, the spirit, mind, and body. And like the brain, where you're having these experiences, it's like the physical manifestation has to be so. This is like spirit chased itself into matter through mind.
Chased itself into matter through mind.
And we're like having literally a leading edge experience of like, I'm a physical being.
Yeah. Cool. Right. So the goal is, can you be aware of all the stuff that's happening within your different bodies?
That's
right, from ego all the way up.
Well, that's the ideal.
That's the goal,
isn't it?
I love that.
Yeah, the goal is to change the intellectual understanding, because some people have the intellectual understanding of that, and just the belief. There's people who are non-dual. They've never experienced non-duality. They just it resonates with them. right? But they've never actually experienced it or anything. Like, they hear it and it's like, yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm accepting that philosophy. But it's a whole different thing once it's experienced.
Yeah.
All right. And that separates the intellectual thinker from the person who had direct experience of non-duality. They're two different things in every way, because the ego cannot convey non-duality to that degree. It can't do that to that degree. But a person can transcend the ego and experience themselves as pure non-duality.
It's feeling. So feeling is in the like ethereal spirit realm, feeling it, and then like the mind is like the projection of it. So it's like the ego exists in the mind. So yeah, you're right. You can't be in one point observing a thing, convinced that you're separate from it, to accept that you are it.
To accept that you are, exactly.
You come back into spirit perspective and you're like, oh, it's great. Like, it's perfect. Everything's perfect.
Everything's perfect.
It's tough to carry out that journey with that. It's almost like holding two different, you know what I mean? But it's like, it's really freeing. It pulls worry out of your chest or something.
Because I believe that it doesn't have to be forced. It doesn't have to be accepted. It doesn't have to be. When a person has that direct experience, that would be the natural process of that. So you're not carrying the extra burden of I have to keep remembering that everything is perfect and everything is this. No, that's a natural progression when someone has a spiritual awakening of that sort.
Yeah.
So there's no really work to be done from that standpoint. Work has to be done in terms of you got to do the spiritual work. But in terms of accepting that perspective, that's just what happens naturally once you've had Satori.
So entertaining that perspective when you're not there spiritually is almost like as patronizing as just doing Hail Marys, like kind of in Christians say, oh, sit and do this prayer that somebody else wrote. And like, sure, there's an affirmation in that prayer that can be helpful, but unless you're there spiritually or emotionally or even fully mentally locked in, it's kind of like just yanking. Yeah,
you're just yanking, right? It's a lot. It's a lot for the mind. So you do the practice, whatever that practice is, and when the mind decides to transcend, and you have that direct experience, from what I believe that should naturally happen to you.
Yeah, you'd arrive there.
Yeah, because I made no effort. I made no effort to experience to say that everything is God. I didn't make an effort to that. That's just what came out of the process. And then I started to listen to spiritual gurus, and that's what they were saying. And I was like, oh shit, this is what I've been trying to say. And that's when I started to whatever. But prior to my spiritual awakening, the only person that I was listening to was Osho. Right? Oh, wow. I didn't know of anybody else outside of Osho. After I had my own personal experience and I was trying to explain what happened to me and what's been happening in my mind, it was like, oh, have you ever listened to Ramana Maharshi? Have you? Oh, I've never heard of these guys. Right? And I started listening to these guys. I was like, oh, this is what I'm trying to say. Right? I didn't force myself to try to see that. That's just what came out naturally. Oh, sorry. Nathan has something to say. But yeah, Nathan, go ahead, buddy. Say your thing.
My question is, if you have a direct experience, right? Does that qualify? Like, if you have a direct experience with the divine, you enlightened and everything, could you be qualified to start a new religion / cult?
Would you be qualified?
Yeah.
You're qualified to start a religion even without that experience. Right. But most people would be inspired to start one because of having some kind of experience. You have to remember, when people have the experience of oneness, it depends on their psychological development, right? From an egocentric perspective, if you have the experience of oneness from an egocentric perspective, you'd probably be motivated to start a cult, right? But you probably wouldn't want to do that. You probably naturally wouldn't do that from the world-centric stage and the cosmocentric stage. But at egocentric stage and ethnocentric stage, you could be inspired to do that, right? Because at that level, you'd be saying, I am God, you guys aren't, and I want you guys to follow and worship me. That could be very cultish. You can say, from the ethnocentric stage, my group, we are God, and all those other people aren't. We are superior, and those people are inferior. Let's create a philosophy that shows that these guys are inferior and we are superior. That would also be very cultish. On the world-centric stage, you look at every people, you look at every person, every person from class, creed, whatever it is, as equal. And so you wouldn't be motivated to start a cult. You may start a religion, a proper religion, right? And at the cosmocentric stage, that could also be, you'd probably be beyond religion. You don't need to create a religion. You probably just create a philosophy that transcends religion. Yet religion, an actual true legit religion, can be created from egocentric, ethnocentric, world-centric, cosmocentric. You just have to be very careful that you don't create something that is a cult especially from the egocentric stage or the ethnocentric stage. But you naturally wouldn't do that from the world-centric or the cosmocentric stage, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the flaws in people's story who start cults when they say that they have religious experience. So it's like, worship me. It's like, nah, I don't think you would have landed there if you were coming from a pure place.
Well, they may have experienced directly the pure place, but because of their psychological development, it's interpreted from the level of their psychological development, because the psychological development hasn't been fully developed. So because you can have the experience of Tita at any stage of development. It's not exclusive to that. You can have it at any stage. Problem is, if you had the ultimate reality experience from the egocentric stage, you can interpret it from that stage. So you may come back from experiencing that at the egocentric stage and says, oh gosh, I just had an enlightening experience of realizing that I am God. What about me? Am I God? No, not you. Just me.
Other people experience it.
And right? they maybe try and sell people.
Yeah. But if the person had that experience at the ethnocentric stage, they'll come back, just say me as a black man. I have that experience. I come back and say, oh shit, black people are gods. Mm-hmm. I come back to all my black people and say, yo, we're gods and those other people aren't. And you're like, yeah, because it sounds good to the ego. Yeah, we're gods. Let's do this. Right? That wouldn't be any good. Right? If I have the experience at the world-centric stage, where in my psychological development, I've already accepted that all people are equal, right? And I had that experience, I'm like, oh shit. All human life is part of this, the ground of all being. Right?
They're gods. They're their own gods.
Yeah. And then at the cosmocentric stage, you realize the whole entire universe is God. Everything that's within it, all humans, animals, the environment, ecosystems, solar systems, galaxies, and everything within the entire universe is the actual expression of God. So now we get 4 different perspectives. And there are many different sub perspectives within these 4, but you get these 4 major perspectives of what could happen. So that's why it's very good if a person has this Tita experience at the highest level possible. You probably won't do yourself that much good having it at the egocentric stage or the ethnocentric stage, because you can come back and cause a lot of problems.
But the thing about the synthetic recreation of something that may or may not be so, I think we'll see it unfold with telling people about aliens. I think that there's potential value to that. Like right now, all these holographic sightings and stuff, like this lady tripping out about like some person shape-shifting on the airplane, I think that may be a synthetic recreation, so we can start to explain to humans and see how they react. So it's almost like a testing ground. But like by the time aliens come and actually make contact, we'll understand that it's multidimensional communication, like that it's more of an organic process than that. But it's like, I think so, just like, and that's almost like a religion. It's like a synthetic recreation. Mm-hmm. Not to knock on anyone's followings, but for the most part, it's like, how you gonna write a book about infinite? Like, yeah, like it's like cool. Like, go ahead and try. Like, go ahead and put it down. And we have like over and over and over again, and it's become about a couple motherfuckers, Paul and John, and me, our boy Jesus, a man, Yahshua of Israel. Like there's a couple stories floating around. Hopefully it allows people to see the metaphor of reaching Christ consciousness internally. It's about spinal fluid, holler, third eye. It's all kind of simple metaphysics that are put in plain sight, but through the synthetic works of recreation that can come off a bastardized version. That's what led me to my little graph, is like trying to project my reality is so inaccurate from the perspective of someone with another God inside of them, another whatever you say. So, but it's cool to see it
I
play
get
out.
another Atman inside of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though Atman, even though the soul, my other thing is the soul that's within Winnie is the same exact soul as that's in Ellevan.
Oh.
It's just that soul is is experiencing an individual perspective of the gross body of Winnie and the gross body of Ellevan. So people think that they're separate. It's like, oh no, they're not. It's the same thing. It's just the ego is what's there so that it can experience separation. So that you feel that I have my own sense of self, which is Winnie, and then you have your own sense of self, which is Ellevan. But the soul itself is actually the same soul. The same soul is within me, Nathan. It's the same soul within everything. And also things that are non-sentient also has soul. It's just having the experience of not having quote unquote free will. And interacting with the environment in the same way, because we are open systems. A rock is a closed system. So it's having the experience of a closed system as opposed to an open system that can evolve, that can grow, that will give off waste products and all that stuff, right? That's the job of an open system. Whereas a closed system, soul wants to experience what it's like to be a rock and being thrown and being in a melting pot of lava that allows itself to break off and become an individual rock and all that stuff. So soul is experiencing that too. But it's hard for the mind to comprehend that. So we break it up and give it all these concepts. But it's the same thing. It's just it has the ability to experience the perspective from Winnie's standpoint and the perspective of Ellevan's standpoint, and hoping that the two perspectives can come together at some point and share the same oneness perspective. Even if that's just between two people. And then the goal after that, can I share a oneness perspective of all beings and all things simultaneously throughout time and space, past, present, and future, as one thing, as Brahman, or as God, as Jehovah, as Allah. Yeah, Hova. There you go, buddy.
So what's happening now with like AI and robots and stuff, you would say, I suppose, that's that soul having a newer experience in this present moment because they're new to our
is soul technology body. Is it an expression of soul?
Everything that's happening in the gross level and all the other bodies, the subtle bodies, it's all expressions of soul. So here's another way of looking at it. There's so many ways because soul is very complex. Soul is non-local. It's everywhere, all space and time, but it's having the experience of being localized as you can say a single human being. But it's more complicated than that because every cell in your body and within cell, remember we talked about holons within holons? Cell is a holon. The holons within a cell are molecules, and the holons within molecules are atoms, and the holons within atoms are particles, and within that subparticles,
electrons,
and all that stuff, all that stuff is happening, right?
Said, hold on, Adam.
Hold on, Adam. Hold on to your love, right? So soul is experiencing itself individually throughout all these things. So it's experiencing itself individually as a cell, is experiencing itself individually as a molecule, as an atom, and so on and so on and so on. Vibrating strings, all of that. Soul is experiencing its individuality through all those things as the individuality as the ultimate holon, which you may call an individual human being, right? Because as you're living, you're throughout your being, which could be from 0 to 95 or to 100, whatever the case is, throughout that time period, every 7 years, your whole entire body is being replaced by brand new cells and everything. All those cells and all that stuff that comes that makes up the cell has died. Yeah. Soul has also died and reincarnated from each of those cells and molecules and atoms and all that stuff. So soul is doing a whole bunch of things as it's happening while keeping itself intact by the mainframe as the ego, as the body known as Winnie, known as Ellevan. So soul is doing a lot of different things, right? And all this is happening collectively throughout all human beings, throughout all animals, all microscopic creatures, reptiles, whatever, viruses, bacterias, everything, rocks, grass, sand, grains of sand, gases, chemicals, everything. Soul's experiencing itself through bricks, everything, right? Yeah, I caught that. It doesn't care. It's just what it does, right? It's just what it does. But it's experiencing itself locally, right? So that's why I have the argument when someone says soul is in the body. I'm saying, well, it's both. Soul you can say resides in the body, but remember, soul is also within the oxygen that you're breathing, prana, right? So it's not just in the body, it's also outside of the body, because from its standpoint, it's non-local, having an experience of having a localized experience through, if you want to call it a human body, a network. Yeah, as a network.
It's like the fascia inside our bodies, you know, that like glue that keeps all our organs like not flying away. That's called fascia.
That's fascia, right?
Yeah, it keeps it, and it's just like
it's the field, the metaphysical field
thing.
It's the field too. Yeah, it's really? A thing that everything sits in.
I thought it was like fat. No,
it's like mycelium. No. It's like quantum mycelium everywhere.
Kind of. But that's argued locally still.
Yeah. And there's a field that keeps everything intact. There's an invisible field that keeps us intact. And that soul is everything that you just mentioned. Also, all the actual electromagnetic field that surrounds us. Soul is in everything. It's experiencing everything from these different standpoints. It's a lot for the mind to take in. But soul's doing all that. So when you die, does the soul leave the body? The soul has an experience of it. It depends on which part of soul we're talking about. The soul is conscious and unconscious. The conscious part of soul no longer, I don't want to say it's not present, but it's not using the body as a vehicle anymore. But you can't get rid of soul from any part of the body, even though it may be decomposing into whatever it decomposes into. But again, soul is non-local. So everything that happens to the physical body, which is just energy, it's experiencing energy throughout these different forms, but nothing's actually changing. It doesn't really go anywhere because it's non-local. There's nowhere for it to go. But from our standpoint, we can't conceive of that. So we say the soul left the body because the body no longer has a living thing inside them, which is true. But I'm not saying that thing that leaves the body, hence why the body no longer has life. I'm not saying that it's all soul. That's part of soul too. But soul goes deeper than that.
So would you, Morgan, in your ego body, hope that more people take on the ideology of non-dualism?
No, I want people to have the actual direct experience.
Okay.
Right? Taking on the ideology is not enough because you'll still suffer. The goal is to end all suffering. Right? So just because you take on a concept and the concept sounds good to you, it doesn't end your suffering. It's not enough. So the goal would be, can everyone have the direct experience? I know that everybody won't in their lifetime. I know this. It's an impossible task. I take it on anyway because it's just, what else am I going to do? Right?
Yeah. That's ultimately the way.
Right? You just do what I can. As from the ego standpoint, as Morgan just doing whatever he can. But I know it's an impossible task. Right? But the goal is, can you have a direct experience to know what I'm speaking of, to know this for yourself, not because I told it to you, but because you had the experience yourself, and you can recognize and vouch that this thing is true. And at the same time, no matter how you experience it or how you interpret it, it can't be the whole truth because there's no way that your ego can actually interpret what's actually happening from the standpoint of the ground of all being. It's just impossible.
Yeah. The whole truth.
Yeah. All right. This has been good.
I
feel more centered in my understanding and absorbing of information.
Oh,
yeah. This is nice.
So true.
Very
Me
nice.
Too. Thank you.
My pleasure.
That was special. Yeah, we could go on for hours.
No, we can always do this another time too. Because
the two of you, I think, wouldn't stop talking. Hours.
Could go on for days.
I was just gonna say, I'm writing a book right now called Implementation versus Awareness, and it was exactly what you were just saying, like the want even to adapt a philosophy that sounds like it could be beneficial is rampant. but the actual implementing of that behavior or coming from that point of understanding, like as though they've had that full experience, it's so rare. And it's basically like, I realize it is mind work to build discipline, but for some reason I've made a marathon out of it. As like each new discipline I choose, it's like watch, like, you know, it's kind of fun to do. But that's what I'm writing about right now, is like the human's condition to implement, like they're off putting their own benefit. It's like, you know, I don't know, but yeah, the end all suffering, that's such a good intention. I love that.
Yeah,
Today
that would be the goal.
Fun to explore.
Can we end all suffering? Even though it's an impossible task, but
can't do it. Yeah, it's not possible at all. How could you?
But a lot of
things.
Would
you want? And what question would you want suffering to end? Would you want suffering to end? Like, because things come out of suffering. So, like, would you like? You wouldn't get pursuit of happiness without suffering. You know,
you're right.
You wouldn't get award-winning movies without suffering.
No, you're right. You're right. So, but my
Will
ego.
Smith!
Once again, right? And he's right. My ego wants it to end. Of course, my ego wants it to end. I know that it won't end. Right? This is how evolution, this is how form exists. Because form exists, and within form, things evolve. Within emptiness, nothing needs to evolve because there's emptiness. Right? But God, the ground of all being is both form and emptiness. So form evolves and does all that stuff. And for evolution to happen, resistance has to take place. And resistance, you can also say that's a form of our suffering, because we suffer as we evolve as human beings. As we grow, we go through suffering as well. You think about the past, your resentments and all that things that you feel remorse about. All that stuff is happening. Your guilt, all that stuff is happening in the past. As you're here in the present, and you're also anticipating the future, but you're also worried about the future. What's going to happen as I get older? What's going to happen with this? Oh, my kids are getting older. They're going to experience whatever, and I don't want them to experience the stuff I've gone through. You're thinking about all these things as we suffer, but that's part of the growth process. That's part of evolution. That's part of growing up. That's just what it is. So you can't get rid of that. But what we can get rid of is how can I become the witness of all that and not be attached to what's happening with growing pains, so that I can go through this life. With the understanding and with the embodiment of knowing of pure being. This is what being does. And if I can do this with movies, I can eventually do this with myself. Because with movies, we're not fully attached to the movie that we're watching. We enjoy the movie that we're watching. We can do this. We can do the same thing when it comes to the ego, the developing ego.
I love that, man. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.